Unexpected encounter. The annual Climate Innovation Summit was winding down, most attendees having retreated to their hotel rooms after a long day of presentations and networking. Olivia Bennett remained in the conference center's garden, poring over data on her tablet. As the lead researcher on a groundbreaking coastal restoration project, she had little time for the social aspects of these gatherings. The algae bloom predictions seemed troubling, a voice observed from behind her. Olivia turned to find a tall man with unruly dark hair studying her screen. She immediately recognized Rafael Moreno, the notoriously private founder of Ecotech Solutions. His company had revolutionized sustainable technology, but the man himself rarely made public appearances. "They are," she replied, surprised he had noticed the detail. "I'm tracking patterns along the Pacific Northwest that don't align with our models." Rafael nodded thoughtfully. "I've been following your work in Puget Sound. Your approach to integrating indigenous knowledge with scientific modeling is ... refreshing." Olivia felt a flush of pride. Her methodology had faced considerable skepticism from traditional scientists. "Most people think I'm complicating perfectly good data with stories." "Most people lack imagination," Raphael replied simply. A comfortable silence fell between them as they both gazed at the illuminated gardens. "Would you like to see something?" he asked suddenly, his expression brightening with rare enthusiasm. "I have a prototype in my car that might help with your monitoring system." Any other time Olivia might have declined. Professional boundaries were important, especially as a woman in science who'd worked hard to be taken seriously. But there was something disarmingly earnest about Raphael that contradicted his reputation as a calculating tech genius. 20 minutes later, they stood in the hotel parking garage as Raphael explained his latest innovation, a biodegradable sensor array that could monitor water quality without disrupting marine ecosystems. Olivia found herself captivated not just by the technology, but by the passion in his voice. "This is remarkable," she said, examining the delicate components. "My team has been struggling with invasive monitoring methods for years." Raphael smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his usually serious face. "Perhaps we could discuss a collaboration." They moved to the hotel's deserted rooftop terrace, their conversation flowing from professional to personal as the hours passed. Raphael spoke of growing up in rural Chile, where his grandmother's connection to the land had sparked his interest in sustainable technology. Olivia shared her childhood on Washington's Olympic Peninsula, where changing tides had been her first science lessons. "I don't usually talk this much," Raphael admitted as midnight approached. "Or to anyone, really. I've noticed," Olivia teased. "Your reputation for reclusiveness is well earned." "It's easier," he shrugged. "People usually want something from me. Funding, connections, publicity. And what do you think I want?" Olivia asked, genuinely curious. Raphael studied her for a moment. "Nothing. That's what makes this evening unusual." The night air grew chilly, and Raphael offered Olivia his jacket. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, creating a current of awareness between them. Neither had expected this connection. Two scientists, more comfortable with data than emotions, finding unexpected common ground. When Raphael walked her to her room hours later, neither planned what happened next. Their first kiss was tentative, a hypothesis being tested. The second was a confirmation. What followed wasn't driven by alcohol or superficial attraction, but by a rare feeling of being truly seen by another person. For one night, Olivia and Raphael stepped outside their carefully constructed lives and found something neither had been looking for. Walls down 8 weeks after the Climate Innovation Summit, Olivia stared at the pregnancy test in her Seattle apartment bathroom, the second pink line unmistakable. She sank onto the edge of the bathtub, scientific mind racing through calculations and probabilities that seemed irrelevant against the reality before her. "This is statistically improbable," she whispered to her empty apartment. They had used protection. But improbable wasn't impossible, a distinction she taught her research. Assistance regularly. Olivia had returned from the conference and thrown herself into her coastal research. Pushing thoughts of Raphael to the background, they had exchanged a few professional emails about potential collaboration between her research institute and his company, but nothing personal. The night they shared had felt like a temporary deviation from reality, beautiful but contained. Now this single pink line connected their separate worlds permanently. She paced her living room, stopping occasionally to gaze at the Puget Sound, visible through her windows. The tide was coming in, transforming the landscape incrementally with each wave, much like how her life was changing with each passing minute. Dr. Bennett. Her research assistant's voice came through her phone speaker. The team is waiting for the briefing on the estuary samples. I'll be there in 30, Olivia replied, her professional voice firmly in place despite the chaos in her mind. At the research facility, Olivia moved through her day with mechanical precision, reviewing data and directing her team while her thoughts churned elsewhere. By evening, she had made her decision. Raphael deserved to know. What happened afterward would be his choice. But withholding this information wasn't an option she could live with. Finding him wouldn't be easy. Rafael Moreno was notoriously private. His company headquarters were in Northern California, but he rarely worked from there, preferring a remote compound somewhere in the Cascade Mountains. After 3 days of discreet inquiries and one particularly helpful call to a conference organizer who remembered Raphael's private assistant, Olivia had what she needed. She booked a flight to Sacramento, then rented a car for the 3-hour drive into the mountains. The journey gave her time to rehearse what she would say, though each practiced speech sounded hollow. How does one tell a virtual stranger they're having your child, especially when that stranger is one of the most innovative minds in sustainable technology? A man whose patents had revolutionized renewable energy systems across continents. Raphael's compound was understated, a collection of modernist structures nestled among towering pines, powered entirely by renewable energy. The security was subtle but thorough. Olivia identified herself at the gate, half expecting to be turned away. Instead, she was escorted to a glass-walled office, overlooking a ravine where water tumbled over ancient rocks. Raphael looked up from his workstation, surprise registering briefly before his features composed themselves. "Olivia," he said, rising, "this is unexpected." "I wouldn't have come without good reason," she replied, maintaining the calm demeanor that had carried her through doctoral defenses and research presentations. Raphael dismissed his assistant with a nod. When they were alone, he gestured to a seating area. "Is this about the sensor technology? I've had my team working on adaptations for your coastal environments." "It's personal," Olivia said, taking a seat across from him. The distance between them felt both too vast and not enough. Raphael went still, his dark eyes watchful. In the weeks since their night together, he had thought of her often, the memory and unexpected warmth in his otherwise methodical existence. He had drafted and deleted countless messages that went beyond professional courtesy, certain of the protocols for their unique situation. "I'm pregnant," Olivia said simply, choosing directness over preamble. "Approximately 8 weeks. And before you ask, yes, it's yours. And yes, I'm certain." Raphael's expression remained unreadable as he processed her words. The silence between them expanded, filled only by the distant sound of water against stone. "I'm not here with expectations," Olivia continued when he didn't speak. "I don't need financial support. I don't need a relationship. But I believe in informed consent in all things, and you deserve to know." She stood ready to leave, having delivered her message. This had been harder than anticipated, seeing him again. Being in his space, remembering the ease they had found with each other that night. Raphael finally moved, rising from his seat in one fluid motion. His face held something Olivia couldn't interpret, not anger or dismissal, but something more complex. "Wait," he said, his voice low. "Please don't go yet." He crossed to a wall of windows, looking out at the wilderness he had chosen as his sanctuary. "I've built my life around avoiding connections," he said finally. "My work, my privacy, they depend on a certain isolation." Olivia nodded. She understood isolation as a choice. Her own life was structured around similar priorities. Raphael turned back to her, his expression now resolved. "But that night with you, it was the first time in years I felt fully present. Not planning the next innovation or solving a problem, just ... existing with another person." He moved closer, stopping just within arm's reach. I don't know how to be a father. I never planned for it. But I'd like to try to figure it out, if you'll allow me to be involved." The certainty in his voice surprised Olivia. She had prepared for rejection, anger, or disbelief. Not this calm acceptance, this willingness to step into the unknown. "I don't know what that looks like," she admitted. "Neither do I," Raphael said with unexpected gentleness. "But perhaps we can approach it like any other unknown, with curiosity and careful observation." For the first time since seeing that second pink line, Olivia felt the tension in her shoulders ease. They were scientists accustomed to navigating uncertainty. This would be their most challenging experiment yet. Revelation: the mountain light faded as Raphael and Olivia sat across from each other in his modernist kitchen, steam rising from mugs of herbal tea between them. The initial shock of her announcement had given way to practical considerations, their analytical minds seeking structure in this uncharted territory. "I've never wanted children," Raphael admitted, his fingers tracing patterns on the reclaimed wood table. "Not because I dislike them, but because my own childhood was ... complicated. My father left when I was 4. My mother worked 3 jobs. I practically raised myself." Olivia nodded, appreciating his honesty. "My parents were loving but absent, always on research expeditions. I spent more time with babysitters than family. Yet here we are," Raphael said with a hint of irony. "Here we are," Olivia agreed. "I've always been ambivalent about motherhood. My work has been my focus. But when I saw the test results, ... double quotes," she paused, searching for words. "I felt something unexpected. A certainty." Raphael studied her face. This brilliant woman who had appended his carefully ordered existence. "What do you want, Olivia?" "Truly," she considered the question seriously. "I want to continue my research. I want this child to know both parents. Beyond that, I'm still figuring it out." The conversation extended into the night, moving from his kitchen to a deck overlooking the forest. They discussed practical matters: healthcare, living arrangements, their demanding careers, and deeper questions about what kind of parents they might become. "Would you consider relocating your research?" Raphael asked tentatively. "My foundation could fund a coastal research station nearby. You'd have complete autonomy, better equipment." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Are you trying to solve this with money, Raphael?" He had the grace to look chagrined. Old habits. "I solve problems by building things or funding them." "This isn't a problem to solve," she said gently. "It's a life we're discussing. Multiple lives." As night deepened around them, Raphael showed Olivia to a guest room. Standing in the doorway, he hesitated before speaking. "Thank you for coming here, for telling me in person. You could have made a different choice." "That wouldn't have been fair to anyone," she replied. Morning brought a new awkwardness as they navigated breakfast together. The intimacy of their night at the conference and the magnitude of their current situation creating an emotional dissonance. Raphael moved efficiently around his kitchen, preparing a vegetable omelet, while Olivia took a call from her research team. "Everything all right?" he asked when she returned. "Just a minor crisis with our sampling equipment," she explained. "Nothing my assistant can't handle." Raphael placed a plate before her. "I've been thinking about what you said, about this not being a problem to solve." Olivia waited, sensing he had more to say. "When I was building my first company, one of my advisors told me that the best innovations don't solve problems, they create possibilities." He sat across from her. "Perhaps that's how we should approach this, not as a disruption to our lives, but as an unexpected possibility." The tension in Olivia's shoulders eased slightly. "That's actually ... helpful." After breakfast, Raphael suggested a walk around the property. The mountain air was crisp, pine needles cushioning their steps as they followed a trail through the forest. Neither spoke for several minutes, the natural setting providing a brief respite from decisions that needed making. "I have a proposal," Raphael said finally, stopping beside a small stream. "It's not a solution, but a starting point." Olivia turned to him, curious. "You continue your work in Seattle?" "I'll arrange a satellite office there for myself. I've been meaning to expand Northwest anyway. I take the next 7 months to figure out what kind of arrangement works for us. No pressure, no premature commitments. And after the baby comes..." Raphael's expression softened at the word baby the first time either had used it directly. We adjust based on what we learn, like any good research project. Olivia couldn't help but smile at his framing. A longitudinal study of co-parenting between independent parties. Exactly, he agreed, returning her smile. With regular reassessment of methods and outcomes. For the first time since discovering her pregnancy, Olivia felt a sense of possibility, rather than constraint. Their situation was unconventional, but so were they. Perhaps their shared commitment to finding innovative solutions would serve them well in this most personal challenge. As they completed their circuit of the property, Raphael stopped at a viewpoint overlooking the valley. I never planned for any of this, he said quietly. But I find I'm not opposed to it. Olivia understood what this admission cost him. El Moreno had built an empire on careful planning and controlled variables. This situation offered neither. Neither did I, she replied, but sometimes the most significant discoveries come from unexpected data. Raphael extended his hand tentatively, and after a moment's hesitation, Olivia took it. They stood together at the precipice, looking out at the vastness before them, much like the unknown future they now faced together. Building bridges, the Seattle winter brought relentless rain that transformed the city into a landscape of reflective surfaces and muted colors. Olivia watched droplets race down her office window, one hand resting on her invisible pregnancy. For months had passed since her journey to Raphael's mountain compound. Their lives had begun a careful integration. True to his word, Raphael had established a Seattle office occupying the top floor of a sustainable building downtown. He split his time between the mountain and the city, maintaining his need for solitude while creating space for their evolving relationship. They had settled into a rhythm of sorts, dinner together twice weekly, medical appointments shared, and long conversations about everything except the growing uncertainty of what happened after the birth. They were building a foundation of trust and communication, but the architecture of their future remained undefined. Dr. Bennett, her assistant. Julian knocked on the open door. Mr. Marino is here. And the equipment for the tide pool monitoring system just arrived? Olivia nodded, smoothing her lab coat over her pregnancy. Send him in, and tell Demetria to begin calibration on the sensors. Raphael entered moments later, looking somewhat out of place in her cluttered academic office, his tailored clothing a contrast to the practical environment of the research center. Yet he moved with growing comfort among her world, just as she had begun to navigate his. The prototype sensors are ready, he said by way of greeting, his eyes warming as they took in her appearance. The engineering team incorporated your suggestions about salinity tolerance. Perfect timing. The Winter King tides will provide excellent testing conditions. Their conversation flowed easily into technical details. This was their comfort zone. The shared language of innovation and problem-solving was only when they ventured into personal territory that uncertainty emerged. Later that evening, they sat in Olivia's apartment as rain lashed the windows. Raphael had brought dinner from a sustainable seafood restaurant they both favored, and they ate while discussing the sensor project. During a lull in conversation, Raphael cleared his throat. I've been considering living arrangements, he said. Carefully for after the birth? Olivia set down her fork, giving him her full attention. I've purchased the apartment next door to yours, he continued. I'm having a connecting door installed, with your permission. We would each have our space, but easy access for co-parenting. Olivia blinked in surprise. He bought an entire apartment without discussing it first? Raphael had the grace to look slightly abashed. I should have consulted you. But the opportunity arose suddenly, and I didn't want to lose it. This is exactly what we need to discuss, Olivia said, feeling a familiar frustration. You make unilateral decisions based on efficiency and resources, but parenthood requires collaboration. I'm trying, Raphael said quietly. This is all new territory for me. Olivia's expression softened. She knew he was making genuine efforts to accommodate this unexpected shift in his carefully controlled life. A connecting door is actually a good idea, she admitted. But next time, let's decide together. Raphael nodded, relief evident in his posture. There's something else. I've been researching parenting approaches that might suit our situation. He hesitated. My assistant compiled some data on co-parenting arrangements among high-achieving professionals. Olivia couldn't help but laugh. You had your assistant research parenting strategies? Raphael looked confused. She's excellent at data compilation. Parenting isn't just data, Raphael. It's messy and emotional and rarely follows predictable patterns. Which is precisely why I'm gathering information, he countered. To establish some parameters for the unpredictability, they're fundamental approaches to uncertainty, Olivia, embracing it as part of the research process. Raphael seeking to contain, it created a tension between them that both frustrated and fascinated. It somehow these differences were becoming complementary rather than conflicting. As the evening progressed, they moved to her living room, where Raphael tentatively placed a hand on her abdomen after asking permission. When the baby kicked against his palm, his expression of wonder was so genuine that Olivia felt an unexpected surge of affection. "I've been thinking about names," she said, watching his reaction. "I was hoping we might consider Valentina for a girl," Raphael replied, "after my grandmother. She was the one who taught me about sustainable living before it had a name." Olivia smiled. "I like that. And for a boy, I'm open to suggestions. What about Matteo? It was my grandfather's name. He was a marine biologist who documented coastal changes over 50 years. Raphael nodded thoughtfully. Valentina or Matteo, names with history and meaning. As rain continued outside, they talked about hopes and fears, gradually constructing a vision of shared parenthood that honored their independence while creating something new between them. It wasn't traditional, but it was thoughtfully designed, much like the innovations they created in their professional lives. When Raphael left that night, he hesitated at the door. "We're going to figure this out," he said, with more certainty than Olivia had heard from him on personal matters. "How can you be sure?" she asked. "Because we're both stubborn problem solvers who don't accept failure," he replied with a rare smile. "And because, ... double quotes, he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Because I've come to care about you, Olivia, not just because of the baby." The admission hung between them, neither ready to examine it too closely. But as Raphael walked to his car in the rain, Olivia felt a sense of possibility taking root alongside the life growing within her possibility for a connection neither had been seeking but might now be brave enough to explore. New beginning spring brought renewal to the Pacific Northwest, its cherry blossoms softening the urban landscape as Olivia made her way through the hospital parking garage. At 38 weeks pregnant, she moved with deliberate care, one hand supporting her lower back. Raphael walked beside her, carrying her overnight bag and monitoring her progress with barely concealed anxiety. "The contractions are still 15 minutes apart," Olivia reminded him, amused by his uncharacteristic nervousness. "First labors typically last 12 to 18 hours. We have time." Raphael nodded, though his expression remained vigilant. "The birthing suite is prepared according to your specifications. I've reviewed the hospital's protocols and equipment standards." "Of course you have," Olivia said with affection. His need for preparation and control had become endearing rather than frustrating over the months. They'd navigated this unexpected journey together. The labor progressed steadily through the day and into evening. Olivia working through contractions with the same focused determination she brought to her research. Raphael remained by her side, an attentive presence offering support without intrusion. He applied counterpressure to her lower back during contractions, timed their duration with precision, and maintained a detailed log that both amused and impressed the medical staff. As midnight approached, the intensity increased. During a particularly powerful contraction, Olivia gripped Raphael's hand with surprising strength. "You're doing remarkably well," he told her, his voice steady despite the concern in his eyes. "Don't analyze me right now," she managed between breaths. "I'm not analyzing. I'm admiring," he corrected gently. In the early hours of morning, Matteo Valentino Bonet Marino entered the world named for both grandparents. When they discovered they were having a boy with the unexpected spirit of both potential namesakes, Raphael cut the umbilical cord with trembling hands, his usual composure completely abandoned as he gazed at his son for the first time. "He has your determination," he whispered to Olivia as the newborn let out a powerful cry. "And possibly your lung capacity for field work?" Olivia laughed despite her exhaustion, watching as Raphael held their son with reverent care. The brilliant innovator who reimagined global energy systems looked utterly transformed by the 7-pound miracle in his arms. 6 months later, their carefully designed co-parenting arrangement had evolved into something neither had anticipated. The connecting door between their apartments remained open more often than closed. Raphael's mountain compound now featured a nursery with views of the forest. Olivia's research included regular breaks for nursing and baby observation, and somewhere along the way, their pragmatic partnership had blossomed into something deeper. On a rare sunny October afternoon, they sat on the deck of Raphael's compound, Matteo sleeping peacefully in a bassinet designed by his father with optimal airflow and sustainable materials. Olivia reviewed data on her tablet, while Raphael sketched designs for a new wave energy capture system. The tide pool monitoring system is showing unprecedented results, Olivia noted, setting aside her work. The environmental science community is taking notice. Raphael nodded, pleased but unsurprised. The integration of your biological markers with my sensor technology was always going to yield superior data. Is that a metaphor for our son? Olivia asked with amusement. Raphael considered this, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps. Though Matteo exceeds any predictive modeling we might have attempted, she couldn't argue with that assessment. Their son had already shown himself to be a unique combination of their traits, Olivia's curiosity and Raphael's intensity. Currently channeled into discovering his own hands and the changing patterns of light through leaves, I've been offered the distinguished chair position at the Institute, Olivia said, after a comfortable silence. It would mean establishing a permanent research center on the coast. Raphael looked up from his sketches. Congratulations, you deserve the recognition. It would also mean deciding where we want to base ourselves long term, she continued carefully. For Matteo's stability, the question of their future hung between them not just as co-parents, but as two people who had found an unexpected connection. They had carefully avoided defining their relationship beyond practical arrangements. Both wary of disrupting the delicate balance they had achieved, Raphael set aside his work and moved to sit beside her. I've been considering that question myself. The Seattle office has proven more valuable than anticipated, and I find I'm increasingly drawn to spending time there rather than here. Because of Matteo, Olivia said. Not only because of him, Raphael replied, meeting her gaze directly. I've grown accustomed to your presence in my life, Olivia. More than accustomed, I've come to need it. The admission cost him visible effort. A man who had built his identity around self-sufficiency was acknowledging a dependence he had never planned for. Olivia felt her breath catch. Are you proposing something specific, Raphael? I'm proposing we stop pretending we're merely co-parents who occasionally share meals and parenting duties, he said with newfound certainty. I'm proposing we acknowledge that what began as an unexpected biological outcome has become something far more significant. That's a very scientific way of saying you have feelings for me, Olivia observed, her tone light despite her racing heart. Raphael smiled a full, unreserved expression that transformed his features. I love you, Olivia, the completeness that defies rational explanation. Is that unscientific enough for you? She laughed, the sound waking Matteo, who blinked at his parents with curious eyes. Olivia lifted him into her arms, moving closer to Raphael. I love you too, she said simply. Oh, I never planned to. The best discoveries are often unplanned, Raphael replied, echoing words she had once said to him. He wrapped an arm around them both, his family he had never imagined wanting. As afternoon light gilded the mountains, they discussed practical matters: where to establish their primary residence, how to balance their demanding careers with family life, whether the connecting door between apartments should be replaced with a proper family home. But beneath these logistics ran a current of certainty neither had expected to find. Their story had begun with an unexpected pregnancy, but it had evolved into something far richer: a partnership of equals who had found in each other not just co-parents but companions for the journey ahead. Two independent souls who discovered that the right connection didn't diminish their individuality, but enhanced it. It's creating something greater than either could have achieved alone. Matteo reached up to touch his father's face with perfect infant concentration, and Raphael looked at Olivia with wonder. Thank you, he said quietly, for having the courage to drive up that mountain and tell me the truth." "Thank you," she replied, "for having the courage to let me in." Their family wasn't traditional. Their path hadn't been straightforward. As they sat together in the fading light, they knew they had built something rare and precious, beginning none of them had expected, but all of them needed.